Hi there, welcome to Lilly-Tree. Today we're making these cute wire wrapped earrings. So let's get wrapping. Now these earrings are great for beginners and they're pretty quick to make, but they're also great for playing about with the dimensions of each element to see how this changes the design. To make them, we need 1mm diameter copper wire, which is 18 gauge, 0.4mm diameter copper wire, which is 26 gauge, 2 beads, mine are 8mm, but you could use a larger or smaller bead, and some ear hooks. And the tools we're using are round nose pliers, chain or flat nose pliers, and wire cutters. We need one piece of the 1mm or 18 gauge wire for each earring, and mine are 3.5 inches long, which is just under 9 centimetres. So we'll take the first of these wires and position it in our round nose pliers right at the end of the wire and right at the tip of those pliers. And we want to start making the smallest loop we can. Now I always find you can't grip right at the end of that wire, so you always end up with a small straight piece at the end. This will affect how round you can make the spiral. So I find when you've started making that first loop, just go in and trim off that straight piece. Then we can continue bending that wire around. And it might also be worth going in with your flat nose pliers just to close that circle up a bit. And then once we can't hold it any longer with our round nose pliers, we can take a chain or flat nose pliers and hold the spiral flat whilst you continue to bend the wire. Now we want this to be a tight spiral with each of those rounds touching the previous ones. And I'm going to spiral this so I've basically got 2 circles of the wire. Then we want to put a spiral on the other end of the wire, but first we need to add the bead. We can then begin, just as we did before, making that small loop. Then trimming the end before continuing. And we want this spiral to be sitting on the same side of the wire as the first. So we just start the spiral with our round nose pliers, bend that wire around as far as we can go, then switch to our chain nose pliers to complete that spiral. And that's the spirals made, and of course we need to do exactly the same with the other wire. Then we're ready to start shaping the frame. Now that we've got both spirals made, we can decide which one we want to sit at the bottom of the earring. They should be fairly similar, but you might just find there's one that you prefer. And incidentally, you could make these spirals larger, or even different sizes if you wanted to, just to change up the design a bit. Then we're going to position that bead down at the bottom next to the spiral, and then we want to gently bend that excess wire around into a large loop. We can start with our fingers and we can use our flat nose pliers to help create that shape. And we want to cross that wire over so that the top coil is just sitting the other side of where the wire comes out of the bead, and it's resting on the bead. Then we'll do the same for the second earring. But But instead of that coiled end crossing at the front, we'll take it behind then we can turn it around, and that's the front of the second earring. Then we just need to take a look at the earrings together and make sure that we're happy that the shapes of those loops match. And you can play with the shaping at this point until you've got them just how you want them. Now you can of course make this loop a lot larger than I have it by just starting with a longer length of wire. Do a final check of those two loops against each other, and I'm quite happy with those. So we're ready to start the wrapping. For the wrapping we need a short length of the 0.4 or 26 gauge wire. I've got 30 centimetres here and that should be plenty. And we're going to start by wrapping it around that back wire where it comes out of the bead. We can just move that front wire out of the way for now. And we're going to wrap it 3 times around that frame wire. Then we can reposition that front frame wire. Just make sure the end of that weaving wire is out of the way. And then wrap 3 times around that front wire. So we're just taking the weaving wire around the side and then through that loop. We'll then take the weaving wire back across. It's gone down through the loop, so we can then take it around that back wire again and wrap 3 times on that back wire. Then we'll come across again to wrap that front wire. Now this is the corset weave, and for this design I'd like to take the weave so it finishes higher up on that front wire than the back wire, which means I've got more of that front wire to cover than the back wire. So to do that I'm going to wrap more times on that front wire. So here I'm wrapping 4 times on that front wire. And then taking the weaving wire down through the loop and wrapping 3 times on that back wire. Then the next time I take that weaving wire down, across to the front wire, and I'll wrap that front wire 5 times. And I'm just going to increase the number of wraps on that front wire by 1 each time I come across to it, and leave 3 wraps on the back wire each time. And we can just continue this corset weave as far up the earring as we want to. I'll just work my way up, and I'm finishing with 7 wraps on that front wire. Then I'll take that weaving wire across. I think I'm quite happy with where that's going to finish. If I do another set, it'll be a bit too high. So I'll take that weaving wire across to the back of the frame wire and wrap that wire 3 times to finish. We can then trim that weaving wire and that excess piece where we started. And just make sure those ends are sitting flush to the frame wire. Then we'll wrap the second earring in exactly the same way. Then all we need to do is add the ear hooks to the top of those loops. And our earrings are finished. If you enjoyed the video, why not hit that like button and head to this playlist for more like it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.